And I'm gonna take that view. All right. So as we've discussed, that this anthology, Sign and Breath, is all about how do we expand beyond how we think about the word. Um, how does a page sing? And so some of these questions are quite the range. In thinking about orality and voice playing a role in your composition, if it does. How is your work received differently on a page versus in performance? Do you compose with those things in mind? What is your posture towards conversations and traditions of the genre in terms of thinking about poetry or prose? Could be any of those areas. And what is voice? So take it away in any way that you want to answer.
Well, if we're talking about voice, so what voice is to me is new. It's new in my body sometimes, and most of the time I can say something and it's belongs to someone else. It belongs to an ancestor. It sounds like my mom. I'm like, who? When did you get here? Kind of voice. So voice is as old as time. Um, and even the timbre and tonality of voice are different for different occasions. Voices on demand. I think that's what I want to say is voices on demand. And I can demand of it different things. I can demand it be gentle or visceral, thunder or conjure. I can use it to whisper a spell that heals the ache in a wound. And I can use it like a large, brilliant sickle to just hammer down and amputate the infection. I can use my voice in different ways. And then voice becomes what you demand of it. A long time ago, with the latest project I did called Also Dark, which is on Etruscan Press, I demanded my voice heal me. And healing me, perhaps it is evidence to someone else that you were never alone, that we went through the same or very similar experiences and you were never alone. You're not doing it wrong. You're not crazy. Quit gaslighting yourself, girl. We're good. And here's how we heal. And I did that by saying to myself, here's how I heal. So I'm a kindergarten teacher by trade, and a poet. I'm both of those things. I love the dichotomy of it too. And some days I demand of my voice to help my little friends. No, it's okay to make a mistake. We made a mess, now we clean it up. Or, that went out of the lines. Let's try harder next time. And sometimes my voice is gentle in that way. And sometimes it's the booming thrum of vocal cords that alerts those same children that I love dearly. You have made a mistake. You are not allowed to make it again. Not on my watch. Those things can happen on the same day, an hour apart. My voice is both. I've used this same voice to seduce lovers, and I've used it to dismiss them. You're good to go. I've also used it to beg them to stay. I have begged people to stay with me. I am not proud of that, but it has happened. And I heard myself do it. And because I've heard myself do it, it's now a part of my history. And maybe it is even something that I don't have to heal from, that it's just now a thing that happened. But it was my voice and I heard it. So that means I'm going to reckon with it. I have used this particular voice to heal in front of a large audience of community. That gathering of human souls listened. You could hear a pin drop, and that was frightening
I was going to
as well
ask
as
you
comforting.
that. Like, what did your body feel like as you're talking about these different modes, the begging someone to stay, or seducing someone, or dismissing, or the 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 engaging in public, and then receiving, and then it coming back? What does that feel like in your body? What are those different modes like, those ranges?
That's exactly what it is. It's different kinds of energies. It's up and down. Do you remember really way back in the 80s when they used to show the beginning of the music montage in the movie and they would show the music kind of bumping up and down? That's exactly it. It's that energy going, hitting up here, coming down here, boom, 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 boom. That is my body all the time. Um, I joked with a coworker very recently that my brain is not just two sides. It's not just left brain, right brain. There's an entire committee sitting up there, voting on stuff, um, vetoing stuff, having arguments, throwing chairs. Sometimes it's not pretty, but it's happening. So those energies are processed in that way.
Mm, mm,
And so, yeah, that moment in time, Lord, it was electrifying. And
mm,
again, completely frightening. I was frozen and met with something, and I used this voice to harken back to what we were talking about, um, that I was gifted with, and summon some courage and the words that I wrote to deliver this healing that I knew I was called to do.
mm,
Um, uh, I call it Dicephalus, two-headed. It is both angry and happy. It's happy you're here, and angry that you decided to show up without calling. It is, you know, it is it's a two-headed balm. It
mm,
will heal, but it's gonna sting first.
mm, mm. Do you, speaking of orality in this voice, and it sounds like it's in different spaces. It's in intimate spaces. Sometimes it may be spaces of just yourself. Sometimes it's communal. Um, when you're composing, do you think about those things? Like, does that, are you seeing and hearing yourself say those things? Are you thinking of it in those spaces? Or how does it come to you?
Um, if it's a poem, I probably needed to write it. Um, and so I probably just needed to get it out of my head or my heart or my body. Just get out, get out, get out. And then if it got out and I read it and I said, ooh, then it's going back in again for performance. Um, I whoa, I'm not loving being called a performance poet or even a slam poet all the time. Um, I know that it's accurate. Uh, I think what happens when that happens is that people aren't allowed to evolve. And I'm starting to understand why people who did come out of the slam scene and did well there start to now kind of distance themselves from it. Not shun, but oftentimes say, that's not all I can do. Um, and I get that, but it's what I did, and I did it well. At least for one brilliant moment, I got it all the way right. And a couple of times I got real damn close. And so I that's where I come from. And I know that at a certain point I was using poems in competition, things that I had composed in competition. I understand that makes me a slam poet. I am a poet who slams, is what I would always say. I am a poet who brings her poems to competition. And you know what? Sometimes my formula doesn't work in rooms. Sometimes my telling the truth and being myself will not work for that particular set of randomly chosen judges. And
What is
that
the
is okay.
difference? What is the difference between the poet who slams versus the slam poet? What
Mm,
is
I
that?
don't think that, see, that's the thing. I don't think that a slam poet exists. I
It-
just used air quotes. I'm not proud of that. I don't think a slam poet exists. I think these are people who use either performance pieces, monologues, or poems to be in competition. Um, and sometimes they use the competition to edit their work. Sometimes they use their competition to garner jobs, to say, oh, you come into my city, I would love to book you here, there, and everywhere. Um, and Slam does that for people. Yeah, I think I answered.
How does that, how
Have
did
a great
slam
day.
work for you? And like, how did you find yourself? Do you see yourself as having transitioned out of that whole, and I'll just say for myself, so I also write poetry, but there was a long time I never read it in public because I thought I had to do that. And I don't
Mm,
have that voice, so I never did it. And
yeah,
so I'm
I
sure.
don't have that voice either, and I've been pretty successful
Mm,
in competitive circles without having
mm.
that voice.
Yeah,
I don't have it. I don't have that. That's not my forte. Um, Also, it would feel disingenuous to me. And even if I've written a persona piece, and I've written a persona piece in the voice of a tornado. I am not a tornado, but I know it's a genuine piece to me. If I had to walk around pretending to be something out of Love Jones, for instance, just to score 30, I don't think I would be credible or successful.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I do not think that I have that voice. I think that voice is sometimes had by other people, and they're very successful in what they do. Um, I remember asking a mentor a long time ago, why can't I win any slams? I don't know why it became important to me, but it suddenly had become important to me to win slams. And he said, talk to them. You're talking about them, talk to them. And that's what I'm good at. That's when I got better, and that's what I'm good at. So I think that that's the difference with most people who are successful in those circles, is that they talk to the audience in verse and rhyme, in free verse, if you will, and large, thundering, booming voices, or even very gently. Um, and that helps them to be successful in those areas. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, we'll wrap with this. How have you seen your definition of voice change? Like how, and how your honing of your own voice and what that means for you? Like, how have you seen that shift over time?
That is a good question. Um, there was an organization that organized a lot of different slam festivals that went out of business, if you will, in 2018. And in 2018, I started to hear people say, she's maturing, she's getting too old for this. Um, I, you know, I don't believe that. That's BS. I don't know if I can curse. Um, and so, um, but I did feel different around that time. Then watching this thing that I love. I loved watching those festivals come up, like big circus tents, and then 3 days later disappear. But you still had that feeling. I loved those festivals, and it imploded. It fell in on all of us, a lot of us who believed in it harder than we probably should have. And that is when my feeling toward it changed. Um, Currently, I'm helping out someone who with a really delicate and wonderful sensibility, um, get ready to compete in the Women of the World Poetry Slam, which in the past has been an amazing memory for me. And she and I sat down to talk about her goals. And we ended up talking about my past experiences. I say that to say that my voice has changed because it's arcing. Um, it's not hit a pinnacle, but it is kind of starting to do that. And you don't get on to the next season of your life without, settling the arc, without the denouement. I think we're approaching denouement. I think I'm ready to not have to do that. I definitely was done right around that time with proving myself to other people, and it was more than likely this, proving myself to myself. Um, because I want to say I really got, like I said, a lot of things went very right for one particular instance. And because I got that close, I thought, oh, it's a fluke. I have to do it the right way next time. And did not get any closer the next time. Oh, then I'm a fluke. I'm not as good as I'm going to try as hard as I can to get it right. And it wasn't fun anymore. So instead of trying to prove I'm not a fluke, I started proving I am a writer. I started working on the healing. I started working on that healing I talked to you about. And then the world closed and we had a whole pandemic. And I sat with myself. And that is how my voice changed. I didn't get to hear other people's thoughts on my voice. And I didn't get to hear other people's voice in conversation, because that's sometimes what slam does, is have a conversation. Well, you did a poem about that, so I'm going to do my poem that's very similar about that. Um, and so I didn't hear that anymore because we were all shut in to our own spaces for a while, and got to hear my own voice the way I wanted to hear it. And yeah, that brings me back to my initial statement. It was my on-demand voice. I demand my voice be a healing today, or I demand my voice be a motivator to get me up out of this bed and clean up some of the junk. I started demanding what I needed of my own voice instead of asking, as good as she is, Patricia Smith to be a balm for me, or as good as she is, Nikki Finney to be a balm for me. I needed me to be a balm for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Angelique. That was beautiful.